I've been poisoned 3 times.
Now let Diddy out. Free Diddy.
Wow, you think somebody didn't want me to do this interview? Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Why are so many people coming down with pneumonia?
What would lead an experienced artist such as Diddy to lose his cool in a court of law? And why is Ray J yelling Free Diddy what he uncovered next left the whole court speechless?
I think it's kind of becoming a circus, and all the allegations, and now with everybody explaining like what's happening in the bedroom. I mean, every day it just sounds crazier and crazier and freakier and weirder, right? And I'm like trying to understand, with all this being said, like with Kid Cudi going on and saying everything that happened, but then ended up saying, Cassie played both of us. It's like, where are we trying to go? Are we just trying to like tell all of these crazy stories and then that equals out to sex trafficking? I mean, it's starting to become outrageous. It's a RICO case. It's really only Diddy and maybe one other person. Like, I'm just starting to feel uncomfortable and I'm starting to feel weird about this whole thing.
Well, it was certainly interesting last week when I interviewed this guy who had the pseudonym The Punisher, who was hired, and it was Cassie Ventura. Right, so it was a sort of very interesting interview because Cassie Ventura did all the negotiating, did all the payments, and did all the texting to him. Diddy would sit in the corner of a hotel room naked, and he would watch, with her apparent full consent, this guy come in and have sex with her. And it happened maybe a dozen times over a 2.5-year period. Now, none of that says to me that that is a serious crime. If she is the one that is organizing it all. Now, she is arguing it was coercion and so on. You know all these people very well. You know Cassie Ventura. You know Diddy well.
The courtroom was already electric with tension. Diddy sat at the defense table, his every move under the watchful eye of the judge and the crowded gallery. The trial was a media and spectator magnet, with almost every seat taken and cameras humming outside the doors. People whispered quietly, reporters scrolled through their notepads, and the air pulsed with anticipation. But even in a trial already fraught with over-the-top drama, no one could have anticipated what came next. Out of nowhere, Ray J, who had been sitting quietly in the crowd, suddenly stood up. His shout cut through the muffled air, silencing the room in an instant. Free Diddy. He shouted, his voice ringing off the walls of the courtroom. It wasn't anger behind the words, it was desperation. For a moment, everything halted. Heads spun around to him, the collective shock evident on every face. A gasp rippled through the gallery as Ray J's outburst cut into the sudden silence. The judge, in mid-sentence, froze. The judge frowned deeply, visibly taken aback, and her gavel banged the bench, loudly demanding order. But the scene was impossible. To regain control over Diddy shifted uncomfortably in his seat at the defense table, his normally composed facade visibly ruffled. His hands drummed anxiously on the table as he avoided eye contact with the melee unfolding mere feet away from him. Some members of the jury exchanged perplexed glances, while others looked straight at Ray J with an intent to try and understand.
I was just thinking, like, what year are we in? Like, it feels like we're in this vortex of like this dominatrix story about all of these different characters that are coming out and the names and the nicknames. And I mean, it's intense. I think that it's entertaining for sure. And it's definitely press worthy. But at the end of it all, it's like, this is what Diddy is being charged for. And this is what he possibly might serve a lot of jail time for. I don't understand it, and I really want to know where this is all gonna go and where does this lead? Because again, it's weird, it's freaky, like the whole oral thing with the 19 guys and the blisters. I mean, it feels like they're just trying to paint these pictures of Diddy, and I was around Diddy all the way pretty much up until the arrest. And all I got from that when I hung out with Diddy, and this is word to my mom and kids. He's always inspired me to be great. When I left, I felt like I could do more for my business. I felt like I had more power because I wanted to be more vocal in running my companies and call my wife if we were getting into it and send her flowers. I mean, these are all the things he was instilling to me and all of the young guys around that were inspired and you know, look at him as a mentor. So now these private things that happen when we were around and never even got a chance to see this kind of crazy stuff, it just sounds like this was a private, personal thing that was happening, and now it's starting to become it's diabolical.
What was going on meanwhile, the attorneys for both sides murmured frantically among themselves, obviously scrambling to figure out how this interruption could impact the case. Ray J's words were loaded with weight that had nothing to do with advocating for Diddy. He made it brutally clear there was something more going on beneath the surface. You don't even know the half of it. He continued, raising his voice even more. You're all looking in the wrong direction. The whispers among the crowd grew louder, their curiosity now bordering on plain speculation. Ray J didn't just look unhinged, he appeared to be making a statement. None of them were ready to hear. The courtroom was taut, the tension almost tangible. Diddy's unease grew more apparent. His eyes scanned the room as if looking for an escape route. It wasn't just the words "Free Diddy" that seemed to unsettle him. What Ray J suggested next sent an even more sinister message. Ray J's vague remarks suggested there was an underlying truth, one that had yet to reach the light of day, and the gravity of his outburst left everyone scrambling to decipher what they had just heard. Finally, Ray J was hustled out of the courtroom by security, but the effect of his words lingered. The room's energy had been completely altered. Reporters scribbled madly while murmurs persisted among the onlookers. What could Ray J possibly mean? What secret could be so perilous that he would risk outbursts during such a high-profile trial? And most significantly, how did this implicate Diddy? Whatever the response was, it seemed like the trial had just become deflected in ways no one expected.
Sounds to me, unless I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that there's been a massive overreach here. This is personal behavior between Diddy and Cassie Ventura that we've seen so far, that it doesn't cross the line from where you sit into serious crime under the RICO law, which of course was, you know, intended for mafia members and so on. Do you think that's what we're witnessing here with this case? That this was consensual? It may be freaky, it may be sexually deviant, it may be all these things, but it was apparently consensual behavior and not a crime.
I agree, and there's things that you know we saw in these videos, they were disturbing, and that's not okay, right? But looking at the crimes that he's being charged for, this is where it starts to go overboard, and it's like whoever was mad at the top was really mad, and I think we're here now, and I think it's a flex, because like, what are they trying to get out of this in this court case? Does everybody that's talking about these stories, do they want to see Puffy rot in jail? Is that what we're here for? Because I just think that that's unfair, and just knowing everybody, it just could have been done a different way, and now it's starting to worry me. And I honestly think that Diddy will get out, and I think that there's nothing here. Right? I think they made their point, whatever they were trying to make. Your point is made.
The courtroom had a hard time getting back in order after Ray J's bombshell outburst. Security had led him back to the witness stand, where he sat down, shaken but determined. The judge, still visibly upset by the interruption, banged her gavel again and demanded silence. Whispers stopped. All eyes were on Ray J as he leaned in, his voice steady but charged with emotion. His next words weren't a shocker, they altered the room altogether. I'm not just here to defend Diddy. Ray J began, his tone clipped. I'm here because someone attempted to kill me, and unfinished, keeping quiet about it. The gallery was immediately tense, a kind of collective unease rippling through the crowd. Somewhere in the back, a handful of reporters looked at each other with stunned expressions, their pens scribbling wildly to get down every word he was speaking. The air thickened. Who could Rage possibly be accusing of such a serious offense? The prosecution frowned, visibly taken aback, while Diddy shunned everyone's gaze as though willing himself out of existence. They know who they are. Rage went on, his eyes sweeping the room. They've been walking around like they've already won. Everyone's heads turned automatically toward the defense table where Diddy sat stone-like, but then Ray J dropped the bombshell, his voice cracking a little as he said the name that hung over the room like a thundercloud. "I'm talking about James Winston," he said, flagrantly, making sure every syllable was unmistakable. Gasps erupted from the audience, and a woman in the gallery audible exclaimed, "What?" Before the judge called for order again, James Winston was a name few had anticipated to hear, a well-connected personality in the entertainment industry. Winston was familiar for his business associations with some of the industry's biggest players, but for him to be charged with attempted murder was a bombshell that sent shockwaves not just through the courtroom, but through social media too. As the news traveled almost immediately, reporters fought to type quicker, some whispering the name into their phones, while others broadcast the story live to their editors. And yet the gravity of Ray J's allegation was greater than mere rumor. He went on to recount incidents he felt made up, an organized attempt on his life. He spoke of cryptic threats he had been issued, near misses with danger masquerading as accidents, and a harrowing encounter where he said he felt his life was seriously at risk. "I've been holding this in for too long," he told the court, glaring straight across the courtroom at Diddy. "But they know I'm right. They know what they did." The judge, attempting to keep control, cautioned the court against further interruptions, yet no one could take their eyes off Diddy, whose expression remained inscrutable, but whose hands betrayed the faintest involuntary flick on the tabletop as murmurs once more filled the room. Ray J's testimony hung suspended there like smoke, impossible to ignore whatever happened next. It was obvious that this accusation wasn't a sideshow. It now felt to be at the center of Diddy's trial, and leaving many questioning what evidence, if any, Ray J had to support it.
Whenever they have an addiction to MDMA or the drug ecstasy, they call it the love drug. So he's been doing this drug for over 20 years. So that's going to lead his view skewed when it comes to sexual activity. I believe it's helped turn him into a sexual deviant. And, you know, what type of man wants to see another man urinate in his wife's mouth? I feel like it's evil. I think his behavior is egregious. And, you know, I have a history of using very heinous acts on people like this who participate in this type of lascivious acts. Have you ever noticed how in this industry, people untimely meet their demise as soon as somebody else seems like they're having a problem? Have you ever seen that before?
Well, there was, of course, the case of one of his other ex-girlfriends, Kim Porter, who died of pneumonia at a very young age. You just referenced your own situation with pneumonia that you believe was deliberate poisoning. Do you believe that may be what happened to her?
Jamie Foxx said out of his mouth that his partner handed him an Advil, and after he took that Advil, he woke up 22 days later. That's what he said out of his mouth. I feel like us as a species, I feel like human skepticism has become a virus, because if we don't trust the words of our peers, where are we as a species? You know, eyewitness testimony and circumstantial evidence is enough to get a person a life sentence in any court on the earth. Why is it that when people are whistleblowing and putting their life and livelihood on the line, they receive so much scrutiny? I don't think that's by chance.
There have been rumors circulating online that Diddy may have poisoned Jamie Foxx, which caused his 2023 hospitalization. In his Netflix show, he compared Combs to the devil in revealing his near-death experience after a brain bleed and stroke. He said, "I say this all the time. I saw the tunnel. I didn't see the light. It was hot in that tunnel. I thought, shit, have I gone to the wrong place? I looked up the end of a tunnel and I thought I saw the devil saying, come on, or was that Puffy? I'm effing around, but if that was Puffy at a flaming bottle of Johnson," and no, I'm just kidding. I think that you have taken that to be a not too oblique reference to the fact that he's suggesting he may too have been poisoned.
Diddy was known for his calculated coolness, a man who rarely let emotions crack through his polished public image, but as Ray J's accusations cut deeper, that carefully sculpted facade began to show signs of strain. When James Winston's name was spoken aloud, Diddy's initial reaction was as restrained as it was telling. He didn't flinch, but his posture stiffened. His left hand, which had been steady on the tabletop for most of the trial, slowly gripped the edge of the table. His jaw stayed clenched, his gaze fixed straight ahead. From a distance, it might have appeared like composure, but anyone watching closely could see the tension creeping in. By now, every eye in the room was bouncing between Ray J and Diddy, weighing the words and decoding the body language. The audience sat frozen, while the jury remained expressionless, instructed not to react, but their collective energy was palpable. Diddy, however, refused to meet their gazes, or anyone's for that matter. Instead, his head dipped slightly lower, his hand moving to adjust his collar, as if the air around him was suddenly suffocating. His attorney leaned in, whispering something quickly in his ear. But Diddy gave no response, his focus locked on some invisible point on the floor. It was clear the accusations had shifted the very axis of the trial. The attorneys for both sides scrambled to process this new volatile twist, but in the gallery the shift was immediate. Phones buzzed from muted vibrations as texts and tweets flooded out faster than anyone could keep up with. Reporters leaned into each other, confirming the spelling of Winston's name, already strategizing the headlines they'd released the minute a break was called. Meanwhile,
because the last time I was scheduled to be in this interview, randomly, our car gets hit from the side by a blacked out vehicle, no license plate. That's happened 3 times this month so far.
Really?
Somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. You know, I'm somebody where I've had FBI come to my house before and tell me they found a threat against my life.
P. Diddy, this seems like every day the scandal gets bigger and worse for him.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think I was on your show before he got arrested, and I brought up what was going on with him, and because I had read through the lawsuit, and it was just one of those things that was unavoidable because there was so much evidence. I mean, there was picture documentation, there was video documentation. And I also want to be clear that the press and the media and the public at large is shocked by what's happening, but we really are just getting to the beginning of everything.
A lot of things start happening to remove people from the case that are going to strengthen the case for the prosecution. And I feel like we're watching that take place now with one of the male sex worker guys who provided tapes to the feds. He's disappeared. And this is similar to what happened in the Tory Lanez case, where the bodyguard whose DNA was on the weapon, he disappeared.
She and Cassie needed to sway Kid Cudi against telling the cops that Diddy was involved in the alleged break-in. Clark testified, quote, he says, if you guys don't convince him of that, I'll kill all you MFers. But that wasn't the only time that Clark said that she feared for her own life. She claimed Diddy once accused her of stealing diamond jewelry. Said that she suffered through 5 straight days of lie detector tests inside of a gutted, rundown Manhattan office building. She testified the man giving the tests warned her, quote, I'm not getting a good reading. You need to calm down. You're going to be in the East River if I can't get a reading on this.
And the prosecution had alleged in its opening he had staffers who helped him commit crimes that aren't necessarily charged, statute of limitations expired, etc., but that he committed as part of this overall criminal enterprise. Phil, let me start with you on whether the prosecution is making its case.
Well, it sounds like, Megan, they're finally getting into some of the meat of the matter, because up until now, we've heard a lot of emotionally charged testimony. We've heard about domestic violence. We've heard about, third-rate burglaries and things like that, like you were just discussing. But we haven't heard much about how this was some type of criminal enterprise related to, sex trafficking. We're starting to hear now that who these people are that are the other racketeers. You've got other employees, security personnel. And so the government is starting to make its case. They've got a long way to go. But until today, I had a lot of reasonable doubt that things that I was thinking about, because these witnesses all seem to have some degree of kind of affection for Combs, or maybe had affection in the past. And it may be that they all had some kind of an angle, some incentive to testify against him, maybe sour grapes.
Diddy's reaction, or lack thereof, was becoming one of the most watched moments in the room. This wasn't just about Ray J anymore. It was about how Diddy carried the weight of these claims and how the world outside the courtroom would interpret every crack in his carefully maintained image. And the cracks were beginning to show as Ray J continued recounting details about what he claimed were orchestrated attempts to threaten his life. Diddy's cool exterior started to falter, his shoulders sagged ever so slightly, his breathing appeared labored, and for the first time since the trial began, Diddy placed both hands flat on the table, his fingers pressed against the surface as though grounding himself. But then came the moment that silenced even the whispers, when Ray J described a specific incident, an alleged close brush with death involving tampered brakes on his car. Diddy's composure broke entirely. He leaned back in his chair, a deep exhale escaping him. And for the briefest moment, his lips parted as if to respond. He quickly caught himself clenching his jaw again, but the damage was done. His reaction confirmed the weight of what had just been said. This wasn't just courtroom theater anymore. It felt real outside. This moment was already spreading like wildfire. Social media was alive with speculation. Was Diddy cracking under the pressure? Did Ray J's claims have merit? What would this mean for the already precarious trajectory of the trial inside the courtroom? Though Diddy's silence loomed larger than any words he could have spoken, every reaction, every twitch, every labored breath, none of it went unnoticed. And as Ray J's testimony edged closer to his evidence, it seemed that whatever composure Diddy had left was on borrowed.